Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Temple Within Radio and Media. This morning, as we do once a month, I'm delighted, and I know you are too, to have Terry Ruel with us this morning. And she's going to be talking about, well, the times that we're living in, but the fact that chaos does precede great change. And how are we in that? How do we behave in that? And how can we be well in that? Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you again. And this time of great change that is greatly needed, and I think has been coming for a long time. The challenge always in life is to learn how to hold the tension of opposites. The teachers tell us how to live in the paradox that life is both wonderful and terrible at the same time. And right now, boy, we can really see that we're living in it. And sometimes it's hard to find the wonderful when you're in the midst of mourning. We've, been mourning the deaths from the pandemic. And now we are mourning the death of George Floyd and the terrible, horrific truth of racism. And how do we keep a balance when things feel so out of balance? But things have been out of balance for a long time. And so to bring things back into balance, there's going to feel these extremes of energy. And we see that in the protests, which are mostly peaceful, and the huge energy of love and support and wanting change, as well as the fire in the riots, the anger. We know that the anger is part of the grief. It's the moral outrage. Moral outrage is love in action, and it's going to come out in different ways. But we pray that it will be mostly peaceful and nonviolent, and that we can move into real change. So we're in an accelerated transformation time right now. And of course, as a therapist, I'm always looking at how many wounded children are walking around in adult bodies. And it is the woundedness in us that, creates the dysfunction in the world. And that's why it's so important for us to heal our own wounds. A society is, only going to be as healthy as the people in it. A group is only as healthy as the people in it that are willing to keep growing and healing. And wounded children, often in adult bodies, either become victims of more wounds or they become the abusers. They want to strike out, hurt you before you have a chance to hurt me. So our individual work is essential to the whole. And we talk about, wholeness as integrating all the parts of ourselves, the wounds and the blessings, the shadow side, as well as our light. And right now we can see that to heal everything that's in the dark that needs healing has to come to the light. So chaos often happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so crisis can be a dangerous opportunity, as the Chinese symbol says. It is an opportunity for all of us to grow and heal, but it can also be dangerous at times because the people who are not aware of their shadow and are going to act out of that or their wounds can be dangerous. So we do have to be aware of what needs to be done to set boundaries with that or take action with that so that is not allowed to overshadow all the good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Rabbi Herschel, that's how you say his name, he was a famous teacher, said there's more good in the world than bad, but not by much.
Well,
so,
Terry, I have a question for you that keeps coming up.
Sure.
When we talk about, what's going on outside of us, we can have our boots hit the ground in protest or what have you. But how do we present good conversation within our own home and our own dinner table, perhaps with family or friends, that hold views of racism or prejudice? Because it's exactly what you said at the beginning of your show. We have to do our own work, but we can be within families or groups of people where we've just said, oh, let them be. That's just who they are. Ignore it. Grandpa has always felt that way. Or my brother, oh, just don't pay any attention. How do we set boundaries within our own homes in a good way?
Well, I think we can start from always talking from the I. So I might say, oh, it hurts my heart to hear you say that. It hurt me as in my humanness to have you talk about another human being that way. Because I feel that pain. I'm connected to that person the same way I'm connected to you. And I know that in my heart.
Wow.
That's why when we watched George Floyd be murdered, we cry. When we think about it, we cry. And if that doesn't happen for you, then I am sad for you because you're not in touch with your heart. And I will pray that you will be able to open your heart to that truth. Because that is how you will heal the wounds in yourself that are stopping you from being able to feel that. We know that when people have been raised with abuse or neglect, they get stuck in their reptilian brain.
Yes.
Their survival brain. So if we can see that they are stuck there, that people do, people who are living in what would they call the mammalian brain or mammal brain, our more evolved brain, have ability to empathize and are able to feel the interconnection of humans, the interconnection we have with animals, the interconnection we have with everything, with the earth, with everything. But the more wounded you are, the more you're going to be stuck in your reptile brain, in that survival brain, where it's a dog eat dog world and there's scarcity. And if you have some, I won't have enough. Or if you get too much, I won't get enough. And I have to have power over you or be above you in some way. or I won't survive. And so when we can see that that's where they're stuck, the only way to help someone move out of that solitary reptilian survival space is to hold a space of love for them and light, that they can feel emotionally safe enough to move out of that a little bit, to allow themselves to open their heart and their mind to connection. Now, if people are in power and they are not doing that, and they are trying to have power over others and creating more woundedness, more pain, more trauma, then those of us who are aware of that and can see that will have to step in and stop them. If we cannot reach them through love and light right away, of course we have to set a boundary with that. But then we have to, believe in rehabilitation and healing and go to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
There's was research done on trauma, generational trauma. And, we know that trauma, wounding, abuse is so powerful that it actually creates cellular, affects cellular development. It can affect the way our brain develops, that it is in our DNA. We can pass down generational trauma. And part of what's happened with the evolution of patriarchy is that there's been trauma, continually passed down to men and women. And, even if you just go recent history, World War I and World War II, the trauma experts will talk about, back those 3-4 generations, that the families that didn't lose the fathers through the death lost the fathers through trauma, that no one comes home from war without being traumatized. And so even if we just look at the recent history of Caucasians as World War I and World War II, and African Americans, and then the recent history of slavery, the recent history of the genocide of the First Nations people, all of that trauma, all of those wars, all of that power over has been passed down in a form of patriarchy that has often shut down men's hearts from being able to be connected to themselves in a way that they could raise their boys to be connected to their hearts. If you tell little boys, if men come home from war, they often are in their reptilian brain. You have to be in your reptilian brain to survive war because it's all about survival.
Right.
So that is what they teach their sons, is that survival mentality. Men don't cry, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That don't be a sissy. You got to be tough. And this has been passed down for many generations. And that kind of shaming and messaging, wounding, cuts men off from their hearts. And it's also what's, made it difficult for women to know how to reach them.
Mm-hmm. Terry, Megan Nutto is in the chat room, and she's got a great question for you.
Sure.
Terry, do you feel the police officers' minds in the moment of restraining Mr. Floyd? Do you feel they lacked empathy, unable to have mercy for Mr. Floyd? I'm so curious where this officer and his fellow officers and the people bystanders didn't stop it. What made them freeze? Shock? I'm still horrified to see a man die before my eyes in such a horrible way. That's a great question, Meg.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you could see in the officer who had his knee on George's neck that I guess I would put it like his humanness was not there. You could see in his eyes that he was disassociated from himself to the extent where he was shut down. He was just in a kind of I don't know how else to say it, but a reptilian place. And that kind of energy is very, very strong and powerful, that it can trigger the fear in others that so strongly that they can either freeze or they can be afraid that if they do anything, it's going to be worse for them or make it worse. They can disassociate to where they don't believe it's really happening or could really happen. And the peer pressure to follow that kind of extreme is a very great energy too. It's why people end up following mobs and why people end up following tyrants. That kind of energy to have power over is so strong that it can, if people aren't practiced in recognizing it and being able to step out of it and stop it, they can get caught up in it. So, it's like it's a trauma that those other officers were experiencing in that moment. Just like soldiers experience trauma, like I say, in war. When there is a life and death situation, when somebody's life is on the line, it creates a trauma. It's like PTSD, where you have it's actually, people can react normally. Abnormal reactions, which we see as abnormal reactions, are actually normal reactions to an abnormal situation. What that policeman was doing was not normal. And so all the other policemen there were having, to us, abnormal reactions. But to them, because this situation was so out of control, they were not reacting normally. They did not know how, well, I can't say they didn't know how to react, but they were paralyzed in responding appropriately in some ways. That doesn't excuse it, but I'm just trying to explain that the brain can do all kinds of things in a trauma. It can try to, scan everything and figure out what to do and not be able to make a decision. It can freeze. It can, that's why the training is so important too when people are going to be put in those kind of situations, because they have to practice and teach their brain that when you are in a situation that can be traumatic, you have to be able to know what to do to respond. And it can't just be out of your survival reptilian brain. You have to be able to critically think. And how do you do that? Well, you have to train yourself to do that. You know, it's so that you don't freeze or don't not react, or you react to or respond, or you react to the trauma that's happening in a unhelpful way or negative way instead of a helpful way. You know, it's not rational. You know, and it doesn't excuse it, but it makes it very apparent to us that we are greatly lacking in how we are teaching and how we are healing and helping and allowing people to be in situations where they have authority and power over other people who are not emotionally and mentally healthy enough to be put in those positions.
Beautifully said, Terry. So I really want to thank you for that question, Meg. And Terry, thank you for sharing that with us. And as I'm listening to you talk about that, I'm thinking to myself, literally, people, including children, have been able to bear witness to a human being murdered by someone in authority, by someone's in authority. And I think I've known you long enough and heard you sharing your wisdom long enough to know that even witnessing that on YouTube or Facebook or on the news is traumatizing.
Yes.
So
yes,
what conversation do we have with our children who have witnessed it, or with ourselves to help with the trauma of seeing that and feeling it?
Yes, I think we all have to, you know, keep talking about it like we are today. We are all trying to heal from this trauma right now. We are all mourning this horrible death. You know, as adults, we can talk about must be what it takes for us to wake up. You know, that we will keep having things put in front of us until we wake up. You know, that is what is the opportunity of crisis. You know, it is to not allow us to be in denial, not allow us to rationalize it or justify it or minimize it, but to face it straight on. And so we are getting shown everything that needs healing in ways that are hopefully forcing us to wake up to our humanity, to our inner connection. You know, I personally feel like this has to happen now because we are on the brink of extinction. You know, we have evolved to a place where we can destroy our own species. And if we do not wake up, that is what could happen. So, you know, this trauma is necessary with children. I think, you know, it of course depends on their age, but I would not allow little children to see that video. They can't process that. They can't understand that. But we do need to talk to them about, you know, this is a difficult time that people are going through, and people are going to be sad and angry because there's a lot of things that need to change, and we're all going to try to help each other as best we can. You know, the kinds of things that I posted, I think I can post some more that give you more specifics for different children at different ages. But I don't think little children are able to process those kind of videos. That it doesn't mean that we don't talk to them about death, but I'm not sure a child psychologist, and that's not my specialty, but I don't think they would say that's something that they need to watch. But I do think that they're going to get some exposure to the fact that people are very upset, and there's a lot of people that are scared, and there's a lot of people that are crying and sad, and talking to them about that people, want change, that there's things that need to be fixed that are really going wrong, and that people are very upset about that, and that's what we're all working on. But there are a lot more people that are trying to help,
Mm-hmm.
and that there are some people that are angry, So, like I say, I'll try to post some stuff on that to have some more specifics.
That's terrific. Tara Rietberg is in the chat room, and she's saying that she read an article that the unrest is spreading to the rest of the world in protests of racism. The world is beginning to wake up finally.
Yes. And that's some of the places where we find hope, I think it was it Gloria Steinem, we have to be hopeaholics, this stuff is really hard to keep hopeful about. But for me, it helps me to keep hope, because I know truth will always prevail. And what this is about is the truth coming to light. And it's global. That's why this is a huge transformation time, because the whole world is waking up to that we are all connected, and that the people is more important than the performance or the money or the status or the stuff, that the people and the planet have to go before profit. And that is what we all need to happen right now, is to have this global transformation and connection, because the problems we face are global.
Mm-hmm.
And that if we want to not only survive as a species, but thrive as a species, we have to start to really face the truth of what needs healing, and be able to support each other in that healing, and make that the priority. And, maybe it's the forever battle of human nature, I don't know. But I do know that we are at a point where the first time in history of human beings that we could destroy our species.
Exactly.
So, that makes it, essential that we break through our own individual narcissism. We break, through our shadows. We're able to integrate them and see them for what they are, and then be able to come together to heal the whole and empower us all. I mean, we're all here during this time because I have the strength to do this. I truly believe that. And our first, path of empowering and healing ourselves is so that we can eventually heal the whole and empower us all, and bring things back into balance. Mm-hmm. And we don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like to feel out of balance. So we fight it. And sometimes we have to get so out of balance that we're forced to have to face our discomfort. Mm-hmm. And so, I look at it like that. It's not a bad thing if it's forcing us to, face what's out of balance and do what needs to happen. to get back in balance. And I don't think we have to do it alone. I think there's great energy and angels and help on a higher level coming in to help us right now. And that we have to do everything we can to stay connected to that grace time, that no time, that higher energy. That's why meditation helps so much, because it soothes the reptilian brain. It calms it. It tells us it's okay. You're going to survive. You don't have to stay stuck in that. You can stay in your higher self, in your healed self, and you can help each other. Sometimes it's easier to think of it as we all have in us our parent, child, and our adult. And our parent is all those shoulds and oughts and those voices that, some were good, some were shaming. The child in us is going to be the wonder child as well as the wounded child. The adult in us is the one we want to keep in charge of stuff, the one who is aware and says, okay, I know that's the parent, saying, oh, those terrible rioters and looters. No, let's go deeper. That's not what this is just about. I need to be in my adult and go deeper than the shoulds and the oughts and putting people down. What is this about? This is about moral outrage. This has been a long time needed and coming. The child in us is going to be scared. The adult in us has to parent that child in a good way. It's okay. I'm going to take care of you. We're going to stay in touch with our feelings. I'm going to stay in touch with you. But we're going to manage this in a healthy way. So I know we're probably running out of time, but that can keep us hopeful and also taking care of ourselves. And like I say, meditation, the things that help to keep us calm, help us know we're safe, that ultimately God has this. He has us no matter what. Stay in the flow of grace. Keep asking for help. It's all around us. And we don't have to do it alone. We're all connected with each other.
Beautifully said, Terry. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm praying for us all.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that is joining us, has joined us this morning, from wherever you are around Grandmother Earth. And to those who are in the chat room, thank you for sharing all of your thoughts about what's going on and what Terry's presenting today. And Terry, thank you for having the courage to have this show and talk about these things, and the courage to help us heal.
Thank you all. You helped me so much too.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. Terry, have a beautiful day.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.